The world of medical practice is expanding at a rapid pace in India. It has many success stories to boast of. But how far people can be proud of their health is another question. The medical establishment has constantly misinterpreted the meaning of health, limiting it to the number of doctors, hospitals, and drugs. The establishment has ignored the social conditions in which a disease originates as a result of unhealthy living environment, unhealthy working conditions, or the stark reality of poverty. The lack of a holistic perspective on health has generated a crisis of confidence in modern medicine. This film examines the main foundation of such a crisis: the drug industry. The roots of Western medicine in India can be traced back to the 17th century, when surgeons traveling in European ships reached the country's shores. The introduction of the allopathic system of medicine provided the basis for a powerful industry, which later pushed aside the traditional systems of health care like Ayurveda, Siddha, and Unani. The first drug factory was set up in 1901 by P.C. Ray in Calcutta. The total drug production during independence was only worth 10 crore rupees. Today, it has gone up to more than 2,000 crores. The drug industry in India is the biggest in the third world, and it has the capacity to be technologically self-sufficient. The country's drug market is flooded with about 60,000 formulations, more formulations than in most developed countries. The majority of these are useless, irrational, or hazardous, and are banned in several other countries. The story of cleoquinol is a typical example. In Japan, this drug had blinded and paralyzed around 30,000 people. As a result of the courageous struggle conducted by Dr. Ole Hansen and others, the company was forced to make a public apology and to withdraw all their products containing cleoquinol from the international market. But it is sold very widely in India. It is yet to be studied how many people have been blinded in India because of cleoquinol. Analgin is a killer drug. It was banned in the United States, Australia, and most of the European countries when they found that it could cause agranulocytosis, a fatal blood disease. But 162 products with analgin are available in the Indian market.
On an average, I would be seeing about 10 to 12 patients of agranulocytosis in a year, and half of them would be caused by this dipyrone group of drugs.
Now, agranulocytosis is very, very difficult to manage.
And almost 50% of the patients who develop these side effects die.
Now, you have many more safer alternatives to that. If the safer alternatives were not there, it was another question. But you have aspirin, you have paracetamol, which are far, far safer. Not only that, they are much cheaper also.
Anabolic steroids are given for growth. In reality, they stunt growth instead of facilitating it.
Now the thing about anabolic steroids are that they are weak male hormones. So what happens is that precocious puberty in boys takes place. So masculinization and maturing again. And where girls are concerned, similarly, like they're growing beards, mustache, and then gaining of weight. And where steroid effects are concerned, everybody knows that become more susceptible to infection. And then of course, like in males, like after they've reached a certain age, like development of breasts and all takes place.
Abdul Hamid took Orobolin for growth. Today, he regrets it. The Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers in India, which represents the interests of multinationals, has different opinions. According to OPPI, the drugs banned abroad need not be banned here because of climatic, genetic and dietary factors.
My answer to that is, the first thing is that these drugs were not invented in India. They were invented elsewhere. If you had no need to study genetic studies then in accepting, there is no reason for you in rejecting them. If they reject, you reject also. Had you, while accepting, you had taken into consideration the genetic factors, then I can understand you should take into consideration the genetic factors. So you see, these are lame excuses.
Instead of contributing to the health care of the country, the drug industry has started destroying health. Mrs. Vakil runs a small center for deaf and dumb children in Bombay. She observes about her students.
I think that the chief reasons we have found for deafness or cerebral palsy or some sort of deformity in children are the indiscriminate use of drugs during pregnancy.
And we know that about 20% of all diseases produced in this country today are due to iatrogenic disease, that means doctor-made, and many of them are due to drugs, unnecessary and excessive drugs.
Drug is not health. The more the drugs, the worse the health.
The Indian pharmaceutical industry is an organized racket with a mission to make money at the cost of human lives. That the criminals of health care are socially accepted is a tragedy of the health movement. Unlike other commodities, the pharmaceutical industry does not concentrate its marketing efforts to attract consumers directly. The main thrust of marketing is to attract the medical profession by hook or by crook. The medical representatives are the main source of knowledge to many doctors. Even though the drugs are manufactured at a cheap price, they are sold at a high margin of profits because of the marketing strategies. An average doctor can remember a maximum number of 200 brands in the market. But there are 60,000 formulations in the market. In order to reduce the confusion, the health activists have been fighting for the abolition of brand names and introduction of generic names. But the industry replies that if brand names are used for all commodities, what is so special about drugs?
I think that way we can go on discussing and we can go on giving examples. And for example, I can say, well then name all the potatoes by different brand names. We want generic names because this has been discussed by the Hathi committee, this has been discussed by pharmacologists, this has been discussed by people all over the world. Even in Britain now they have gone to generic names. Because by using the generic names, the drugs become less expensive, and also the doctors and medical students have to know the names of less number of drugs. And there is less likelihood of confusion. And companies which have more marketing capability cannot force people to use their drug.
Apart from recommending abolition of brand names, the Hathi Commission report expressed the need for nationalization of the multinational firms and production of essential drugs. While this report inspired Bangladesh to make radical changes in its drug policy, it has virtually been buried in India. The EP Fort story is a story of a social crime. High-dose estrogen-progesterone combinations are commonly misused both as hormonal pregnancy tests and as early abortion agents.
Patients who missed their period were given this EP Fort or estrogen Fort preparation either in the oral tablet form or the injectable form. And it was thought that if they didn't get a period following that, it proved that they were pregnant. And if they did get a period, it proved that they were not pregnant. But we know now that in either case, there can be a false negative or a false positive. Another problem that has arisen is that EP Fort has been implicated, or estrogen Fort preparations have been implicated in causing abnormalities in the unborn child.
Shubhangi is only 12 years old. Her mother had taken EP Fort during pregnancy, and Shubhangi was born with a deformed hand. Unichem, the firm which is said to be responsible for her pathetic stage, continues to manufacture EP Fort, an effort which can produce thousands of deformed babies. Incidentally, the chairman of the company which produces this dangerous drug was given the Padma Shri Award. The fancifully packed poison is often sold without prescription and without proper instructions. When instructions are available, they are usually in a language which cannot be understood by the majority of the Indian people. Even when patients are aware of side effects of drugs, doctors sometimes insist on their use. Mrs. Kisan Mehta died in such circumstances. Her doctor treated her for cancer without evidence of the disease and despite objections from Mrs. Mehta's family. Death was the reward of medicine.
The very symptoms which she had started showing, the manufacturers have told that in case of such presence of such adverse reactions, the drug should be immediately stopped. Then I asked that this drug should be stopped. So the doctor says, no, don't worry, we will continue, you are a friend, I know your condition. So the case went beyond redemption, and she died because of septicemia and not because of cancer.
Physicians have replaced clergy in our times. Doctors specialized in incompetence demand blind faith from the patients. The patients no longer have the right to control their own bodies and to make proper decisions. They only have the right to pop the wonder drugs and magic pills prescribed by the priests of medicine. 75% of the drugs sold in the market are useless, hazardous, non-essential or spurious. Tonics which have no therapeutic value constitute a major portion of these drugs. The World Health Organization brought out an essential drug list of 252 drugs which would be sufficient to cure most of the diseases in the world. While these essential drugs are not produced properly in India, unnecessary and hazardous drugs are mushrooming in our market. The lack of essential and life-saving drugs has become a grave problem today. Our country can boast of having more than half of the TB patients in the world. 5 lakhs of these die every year in India. but we produce only 1/3 of our minimum requirement of anti-TB drugs.
See, many companies, particularly the multinational companies which used to produce all these drugs, essential drugs, they have stopped, particularly anti-TB drugs. For example, Pfizer's, they used to produce INH, PAS, etc. They stopped.
About 1.5 million children die every year in India due to diarrhea. About 2,500 children die every day because of dehydration alone.
The deaths because of diarrhea, which most of the times occur because of dehydration, which is the major killer. And in fact, these are the deaths which are preventable. In case we want to prevent these deaths, there is a number of remedies available, and it has been said that almost all deaths because of uncomplicated diarrhea may well be prevented by oral rehydration solution.
However, ORT, which is said to be the biggest medical revolution of modern times, is not propagated while several useless antidiarrheals are marketed successfully. There are over 60 million people with endemic goiter in India. Iodine deficiency has also resulted in the birth of deaf, mute and mentally subnormal children. But we produce only 20% of our requirement of iodized salt, a major portion of which does not even reach the affected people.
Vitamin A, which is required very commonly to prevent the blindness in children, it is again in a short supply. Every year approximately 30,000 children go blind because of lack of vitamin A.
So what is happening in this country is that how much a drug should be produced is not decided by doing analysis of how many people are suffering from the disease, where the drug is useful. But what is the market demand of the drug?
A recent study has revealed that 1 out of 5 drugs in the Indian market is spurious or substandard. Many lives have been lost in our country because of the use of drugs of low quality. JJ Hospital, Bombay. 14 people died here after consuming low-grade glycerol. The drug control set up in India is known to be inefficient, understaffed and corrupt.
I think that if drug industry is given a free hand, this is my feeling again, my personal view, a customer will get a cheaper medicine, better medicine, and he will get health-wise also. I think it is the entire nation is going to benefit. Everybody has to survive.
It is not only through doctors drugs are sold. Even drugs which legally cannot be sold without prescriptions can be bought in the Indian market. Often, chemists act as doctors in pushing drugs over the counter.
And I found that almost each of the over-the-counter drug that is available is irrational. I'll give you example of this famous gripe water produced by different companies. Now almost every child, especially from a lower socioeconomic educational background, slums, villages, gets gripe water. And gripe water is absolutely useless. It has no value whatsoever in preventing diarrhea, in promoting growth. It just contains glucose, soda bicarb, peppermint and flavoring agents. And beyond that there is hardly anything. And none of the text, it doesn't contain even vitamins. It is not a tonic also. So millions and millions of rupees are just wasted on this gripe water, which is a very unique kind of product, and I think it is totally useless and should immediately be banned.
The drug stores are stocked with products that supposedly yield energy. These are pushed into the market through the influence of advertisement films. According to Dr. Safarullah Chowdhury, a noted drug activist, a bottle of Horlicks contains vitamins worth 15 paise only, but it is sold at an exploitative price.
No matter what the season, rainy weather or bright, you'll find a cup of Horlicks keeps them smiling all right. Horlicks Horlicks is full of goodness, it's always been that way. Mothers like Suchitras of Horlicks every day. Doctors recommend it 100 years and more. For Horlicks special goodness keeps good health on the go.
Fancy displays of advertisements try to make us believe that the use of Vicks Vapor Rub would remove our colds overnight.
Now this is totally bunkum because cold, most of the colds are caused by a virus and it takes at least 3 to 4 days and generally a week to get over your cold. Whatever medicines you apply, there is a saying in medical textbook that if you take medicines, the cold will disappear in 1 week. If you don't take medicines, then it will disappear in 7 days. Therefore these instant remedies are hooks on the people.
I think the whole thing is that the manufacture of drug is purely looked upon by pharmaceutical industry purely as a business of making profits. It has nothing to do with the healthcare.
Probably the government also feels that drugs have nothing to do with health. Perhaps this is why the drug policy is not decided by the Ministry of Health. It is decided by the Ministry of Industries.
So the entire policy is extending the benefit to the multinationals. Therefore we say that this is a total sellout to the multinationals.
So now here is a situation where what should go in a rational drug policy is well known. Bangladesh has shown it, different countries have shown it. And now if we continue to have what we are having, this is a very knowingly done action. And it's a totally anti-people policy.
The present drug policy indicates that the power of money has defeated the power of healing. Ethics and morality have long before been mortgaged in the blind pursuit for profits. Mystification of modern medicine has become a chronic disease. The only treatment for this disease is organized action against the greedy managers of pharmaceutical power. When people demand for health, it will be a demand for a new politics and a new way of living. Joy of health is not a concession to be dreamt of. It is a fundamental right to be fought for.
बीमारों को बचाओ सदा अब तो उठ जाओ सदा अब तो उठ जाओ सदा अब तो उठ जाओ एसेंशियल ड्रग्स की लिस्ट बनाओ जनता तक सूचना पहुंचाओ जनता की कमेटी बिठाओ ड्रग पॉलिसी पर बहस कराओ एसेंशियल ड्रग्स ले आओ बाकी बंद कराओ बाकी